Welcome to Unleashed at Work and Home. I'm Colleen Pilar, and this is where pet professionals come for honest conversations about what it really takes to show up for yourself while serving the animals you love. If you've ever felt caught between compassion and exhaustion, you're in the right place. Here we explore what it means to reconnect with your inner wisdom and rediscover the joy that brought you to this work. Make sure to join my email community at colleenpilar.com for gentle, practical insights designed specifically for pet professionals. Now, let's dive in. Welcome back to Unleashed at Work and Home. My guest today is Lili Chin, and if you don't know her name, you probably know her art. She has so many wonderful resources with, I was just going to say dog body language, but cat body language too, and other animals as well. So welcome, Lili. I'm so glad you're here today.
Hi, Colleen. Thank you so much for having me.
I will admit I have sort of a personal delight in having you here that I started cartooning about 4 years ago. And it is a late in life passion that's been challenging for me. And then I see your art with such simple lines and such beauty, and I'm blown away that not only do you have cute images, but that you are able to communicate really specific body language things in very simple lines. Like, it's deceptively simple what you do. Thank you for doing all of that.
Of course. So, I've been drawing since I was very little, like as far back as I can remember. And I have a background in traditional animation, which is uh, a career that is drawing based. So I did a lot of drawing. I learned from a lot of animators and very proficient artists. So I guess I've had a lot of practice. to
Well,
get together to a stage where I can, I do my best to communicate as much as I can with as few lines as possible.
it's really extraordinary how few lines you use and how much you convey, um, just from the perspective of what is actually there on the page. So a
Mhm.
question I love to ask all of my guests is, when you were 10, what did you think you were going to be when you grew up?
Such an interesting question. So when I was 10, I was in Malaysia. I was in primary school, and actually, it's funny you should ask because every year we had like a form that all the students have to fill out. Like, what do you want to be when you grow up? And you're meant to list like three things. And I had archaeologist, private investigator, and art teacher because I didn't know how to incorporate drawing into a profession. So I just thought, okay, art teacher.
Okay, that's kind of cool. Those are very different on my
Yeah,
map.
yeah.
Archaeologist, private investigator, and art teacher.
Maybe
Yeah.
because I was reading a lot of like mystery books,
Mhm.
like solving kid characters solving crime and things like that. And I thought that's what I want to do.
So cool. So how did things go from there? So you got through
Um,
regular school, and then what happened? Like,
I
did you
got through regular school and I went to art college, which was it was College of Fine Arts in Sydney, and I was going to get an art degree. But I was actually very, I was kind of a unsettled, scattered teenager, and I didn't finish my degree. Instead, I kind of did several odd jobs, and then I decided that I really wanted to learn how to animate. I wanted to get into animation because I've always loved seeing drawings move and come alive on the
Mhm.
screen. And in Sydney at the time, this is like the 90s, there were no courses, so there was no education, tertiary education for animation. So I became an intern in an animation company and worked for free for like several months just to get
Wow.
in just to get into the industry to learn to be able to do it. And then I worked in the animation industry for several years before any of this happened, before dogs or cats or any of this.
Yeah, and where do you live now?
I now live in LA, so on the West Coast.
So, Malaysia to Sydney to LA, any other
Yep.
places in between?
That's it.
That that's it. That's all. What took you from Malaysia to Sydney?
Okay, I was sent to school in Sydney by my parents. Well, my mum passed away when I was little, so it was just my dad, and I guess he wanted me to get a better education and to
Hmm.
be cared for. So he sent me to boarding school in Sydney. I was 12,
Wow.
and so I was in school for 6 years in Sydney, and then I decided after school that I wanted to stay in Sydney because I
Hmm.
had friends and I had things I wanted to do. And then I how I came to LA was through animation. I had a little animation studio with a ex-partner, and we used to work on like commercials and TV series and things like that. And we came up with an idea for a show, and Warner Brothers Animation in LA optioned it and turned it into an actual TV series. So we
Wow.
moved to LA to work on it, and that's how I ended up in America. And then
Wow.
and then I stayed. I didn't go back. I liked it here and I stayed.
How long ago was that? How long ago did you
That
come?
that that was in the early 2000s.
In the early 2000s.
And then I became a citizen in 2019.
So, how did you go from your animation studio to what I would consider a pet professional? Like, how did you become the person people think of
Okay.
when they think about
So
this kind
it's
of
so there's the cliched story. It was because of a dog.
of course.
Of course.
Aw.
So I my animation work was drying up and it was becoming less stable. And I had just adopted a Boston Terrier called Boogie. And
Mhm.
before then, I was fostering Boston Terriers for Boston Buddies Rescue, and I was doing illustrations of dogs as a fundraiser for the rescue. And because I was uh, fostering for them, they said, "Well, when you're ready to adopt, you could take your pick of our dogs."
Mhm.
And I chose Boogie because I just liked the way he looked, and it said that he had no issues. He had no health issues. I just fostered all these very senior dogs, and it was really painful to see them what they went through. So I was really happy I got this healthy, physically healthy young dog. Um, was Boogie, and he was physically healthy at first, and then he bit my building manager. I was in a rental apartment at the time, and I was issued an eviction notice.
Oh,
They
wow.
said to either get rid of the dog or move out. I didn't want to do either of those things. So I kind of pleaded and they said, well, and my landlord, who was, I don't know if I'm allowed to swear, he was a bit of an asshole, but he said, well, I could reconsider it if you could get us on TV. How about that dog whisperer show? And I didn't know anything about dog training or behavior at the time. In my naivety, I just wanted to be able to keep my dog. So I um, made all these phone calls and I actually got in touch with the Dog Whisperer Show production team. And they listened to my story about how I was about to get kicked out of my apartment because my dog bit somebody. And they asked me to send video of my dog being aggressive so that they could consider me to be on the Dog Whisperer Show. And I remember saying to them, well, I don't want to do that because I don't actually want him to be aggressive. Like, I don't want to put him in a position where he has to be aggressive.
Mhm.
So I didn't go with the show for that reason because I just did not want to take this video. Uh, but I did look for a dog trainer and not knowing anything about anything at the time, I
Mhm.
Googled dog trainers and found somebody and hired the first person I Googled. And that dog trainer put Boogie on a prong collar
Mm.
and used was quite mean. I mean, we had to enroll in a boot camp where he had to be corrected with this, given collar corrections every time
Yeah.
he looked at another dog. He became more subdued, but he also became more scared of people. He became more prone to lashing out and lunging and uh yeah, and I got really, I mean, I was very confused about what to do. So
Yeah.
there was a dogster behavior column that was online, and I
Mhm.
wrote into that column and I said, "Hi, I have this dog. Um, we're getting some training for him. He's aggressive. I don't know how to get him to like people again. He's on a prong collar and he just doesn't seem, he's scared of people. And the person who replied to me in that com was Grisha Stewart. And she said, get rid of the prong collar and look into this thing that I'm developing called BAT, behavior adjustment training. So she kind of opened the door for me to start investigating other methods. Like I wasn't aware that there was a whole world of dog training that was not
Mm-hmm.
based on punishment and using force and fear.
Yeah.
And I found trainers like Emily Lala on YouTube. I
Mm-hmm.
found Dr. Sophia Yin's website, and I started reading books by Karen Pryor. And I thought, wow, I want to do this stuff. I want to learn how to clicker train. Um, my the trainer at the time was not interested in teaching me clicker training, so I decided to stop going to those classes and did not get any of my money back. And I was looking for another trainer, and through the internet and lurking on different Yahoo groups, I found Sarah Owings, who is a Karen Pryor
Mm-hmm.
trainer, but at the time she was still fairly new, and she decided to be my trainer, and then we decided to try bat with Boogie. Um, and to cut a very, very long story short, Sarah introduced me to books and DVDs with dog body language, like the Turit Rugas book, Turit
Mm-hmm.
Rugas DVD. And I remember just being blown away by all this information that was not on TV, that was not on the Dog Whisperer show, that nobody knew anything about. And I just wondered, why don't people know this? Like, we should know this. We should be taught this. So I started illustrating. Like, I had a blog for Boogie and my training lessons, and I would illustrate things I was learning through our bat sessions. I would illustrate dog body language stuff that I was learning from the DVDs and just by observing my dog. Um, and Griffith Stewart decided to hire me to illustrate a book. I got in touch with Dr. Sophia, and she hired me to illustrate her dog body language charts and all her other educational material. And I guess from that point forward, it was just through word of mouth that more people hired me for dog body language charts, and I just started creating a whole lot of those.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
amazing. I mean, it's unfortunate that your initial foray was so harmful, and yet all of the good that has come from it because you were so committed to Boogie, but also committed to learning what would help. That
Yeah.
I mean, there are a million unknown dog trainers, and the ones you've just shared here are all known. Like for Sarah Owens to be the trainer that you found, wow, you know?
Yeah.
That's kind of cool. And I love that
Well,
you
well,
had a
they weren't known at the time.
right. I mean, exactly.
Yeah.
But yes, like for those of us who are just starting to reach for kernels of information,
Yeah.
and because I mean, when I started training, which was in 1991, there was nothing. There were, like, no books,
Mm.
very, very few books, and very few weekend workshops or conferences. There were no schools of it, like San Francisco Academy for the Dogs did not exist at that time, or Karen Pryor's academy did not exist at that, and so all of that has come just since then, and the idea of you documenting your lessons with illustration, because that was just natural for you because of your skills, being a way that it sort of incorporated the learning for you, like, you were able to rehash and synthesize what you had done, but also make it in a way that other people were able to see and learn from that. It's so cool. It's really cool how that all fell together for you. So,
Mm.
I am so curious about how people choose their dogs' names. Did Boogie come with his name, or did you pick it? How did
I picked it.
you picked it?
Yeah, his name was Willie when I adopted him. And it
Mm.
was just it was actually my ex-partner who chose Boogie. And he said, "Oh, how about Boogie?" Because we were trying to think of a name that was kind of fun and it suited him. So
It did, and
yeah.
it's known. Like, if I see a Lili Chin Boston Terrier, I know it's like, it might not be to you Boogie anymore, but it is to me.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
I think his name when I see him, so he's
yeah.
famous. It's a fun name, Boogie. I have not ever met a Boogie in real life, and I always like the names that I haven't encountered before because they are personal to the people who chose them then, which is so cool. So, in terms of your work now, is it almost all animal stuff, or do you have, like, an entire passion that's completely unrelated?
So my work, the work that I earn a living doing is mostly animal stuff. It is all animal stuff actually. It's dogs, but I mean now I also draw cats and other species depending on what I'm hired to do. So for example, I've done like body language poses for guinea pigs and rats and bunnies, um, hedgehogs, a cockatoo, and,
Wow.
and it's really, I mean, I love it because I'm learning at the same time.
Mhm.
But other stuff, I mean, so lately I've been doing a lot of protest art for, given what's going on in the country.
Mhm.
And so some of that is animal related, some of it is not. For example, there's a giant data center that is being threatened to be built in my neighborhood, like 1 mile away from our home. And it's going to be a giant building that will emit air pollution and noise and be on our power grid and consume tons of resources and make it an unsafe place for our community. So I've been doing art for that to protest that for
Mhm.
the people in our neighborhood. So yeah, so this is sort of like extracurricular stuff that I'm not being paid to do. It's just, I feel compelled to do it.
Yeah, in your spare time, you do art,
Yeah, and
and
I
in your
also
paid time, you do art.
yeah. Yeah, just different art.
So, in terms of the animal work, what percentage is, like, dog stuff versus other animals?
I would say a large percentage is still dog stuff because maybe I'm better known in the dog community than I am in other communities. I mean, when Boogie passed away when he was 16, that was in 2020, and then the following year, my husband and I adopted 2 cats. So I've been doing some cat infographics for, like, cat behaviorists, but I think there are more dog people than there are cat people in general. So
There are more people being paid to help people with the behavior of dogs
exactly, exactly,
than
yep.
people being paid to help people with the behavior of cats. Like, there is sort of not an understanding, an expectation that a dog's behavior can be modified and adapted, and there's all sorts of things you could do. And with
Mhm.
cats, culturally, not like this is not my belief, but culturally, there's a little bit of like a cat, you get what you get, like that's
Yeah.
just how it is. That's not true. There are definitely cat specialists, but people don't say as their first piece of advice, "Oh, you really need to call a cat trainer." But they definitely will about your dog if there's
Yeah.
anything about your dog that they have an opinion about, they'll be like, "Oh, you need to see a dog trainer." So,
Mhm.
I'm sure that that plays a role here. I'm interested to see that cat behavior is becoming a much bigger field than it was, and I'm curious what its trajectory will be given how the internet does bring people together in ways they never expected, that the
Yeah.
resources are more easily available now.
I think a big difference in the cat behavior work that I've been learning about and illustrating is that there's a bigger focus on the environment, environmental enrichment, like having how you set up litter boxes and cat trees and food and water and beds
Mhm.
and yeah, it's about how you structure your environment to give them and play as well, playing with them every day because most people assume that you get a cat and you don't have to do anything, whereas you have to walk your dog every day, but you actually should be playing with your cat every day or interacting with them.
Yeah,
So
yeah. And you have 2 now? Is that what you said? 2
I have
cats?
two, yeah.
What do you like to play with them?
So one of them is food obsessed. So a lot of the He's very uninterested in anything if there's no food involved. So a lot of it is like puzzle toys with treats in them or like toss treats. So put them up high and he has to climb and get them. And the other one, Shimmy, she's obsessed with like the little laser light and we make a little game out of it. Like she loves to pounce on it um and then we turn the light off when she catches it. And you know, she loves her little toys as well.
From the perspective of learning to draw the dog body language and behavior, one of the big challenges in teaching people body language is that dogs' bodies are so different from species. I mean, not from species to species, but breed to breed.
Mhm.
um, so, what do you think is most important for you when you're trying to convey this in different animals? What are you looking for?
I guess for me personally, I like
Hmm.
to know what the baseline is for a relaxed. Like if I know what a relaxed dog looks like, then I can use that to to see the difference between that and not relaxed and different degrees of stress or excitement. So, um, does that make sense?
It does make
Yeah.
sense. It's sort of interesting. I was watching a video in an ACE free work class the other day, and they were just pointing out slight differences in the spine of a dog,
Hmm.
just based on body position. It was really very, very interesting to me to see that, to see where they were noticing, is the spine a little bit hunched or is the spine a little bit
Yeah.
down? And and just making adjustments based on that. And in line work, it seems like that can be kind of tricky. There was an artist well, not many years ago, but there was a cartoon strip called Red and Rover. Are you familiar with it at all?
No, no.
The artist was Brian Bassett, which I always thought was funny that he had a dog last name. But I personally didn't love his dog heads. But he had sort of a retrievery dog. The
Hmm.
body language of that dog was delightful. Like, he would have the dog rolling on its back or laying on its side or curling around something or just simple, simple lines. And when I saw your work, it kind of reminded me of some of his stuff at first. And then as I saw more of your work, I was just so attracted to the simplicity of the way you convey things, because that's one of those simple but not easy pieces. Like,
Mm.
you make it look easy, like, "Oh, look, there's just this little outline." That's not really true, at least in my experience of drawing, that's simple. Um, have you always leaned toward that style, that kind of simple, clear, bare bones, I guess, almost
Yeah,
style?
I guess so. I guess I always have. I mean, I'm a cartoonist. I mean, I come from a cartooning background, and in animation, you have to draw as simply as possible because you're drawing the same thing over and over again from in a series of drawings to create movement. So if it's too complicated, then it's just going to be really hard to do. So, um, yeah, so I guess I have that background.
What's something that's particularly interesting to you that you've learned either about yourself or your work as a result of doing so much work on animal body language and behavior?
Um, what have I learned about myself? Uh, oh gosh. Let me think. I mean, I know I love it. I love learning about body language. I love learning to observe things that I otherwise may not have seen. Um, and I guess it because I love animating, so it feels a little bit like that. Like although I don't do any animating, I don't work in animation anymore. It kind of taps into that love.
Mhm. And you don't do any animation for, like,
No,
fun stuff? Like, it's just not a piece of your.
no, not really. A lot of that has to do with technology. I don't have. I mean, technology changes over time, like the software that goes with animating. Like I no longer know how to use what's available now. It's changed. So,
Yeah.
yeah. But I mean, I have the skill to, I mean, I can do it. It's just,
Right.
creating a finished product is a little bit more complicated. I have to learn some new things.
If you could do, body language pictures of some animal that you have not yet done, and it was anything you could choose, what might it be?
Gosh. Um, I mean, anything really. I would do anything that I haven't done. I would be happy to do it. So last year, and I've kind of dropped the ball a bit on this, but I did start a chart of snake images.
Oh, wow.
I sort of connected with a snake behavior consultant, professional, Laurie
Mhm.
Tarini, and she's made all these videos on snake body language, like how to tell when they're relaxed and stressed and different degrees of stress. So I started drawing those, and that was really interesting to me. Yeah, I mean, I'm really open to anything.
Which is really cool. So, do you think of yourself, like, this is a show about pet professionals. Do you think of yourself, in a sense, as a pet professional?
Oh no, no, I don't. I think of myself as somebody who works with or works for pet professionals.
Okay.
Yeah. Like I would like to think that what I'm doing is helpful to pet professionals.
Oh, it absolutely is.
Yeah.
It absolutely is. And if we could go back and tell 10-year-old Lily that this is what she'd be doing, what would she have thought about where you are right now?
I mean, I this is so totally unexpected from what I thought I would be doing even like 10 years ago. When I was working in animation in my like, you know, after school, I had no idea that I was going to adopt a dog and that I would be drawing dogs for a living. Like, completely unforeseen.
And so delightful. It's just kind of cool how things work out. So, I'm gonna ask a totally self-serving question now.
Okay.
What advice do you have for someone who is learning to draw or cartoon, to make it easier or better?
Okay. So this is how I learned. So I did life drawing classes when I was 16, about 16, 17. Um, that you can focus on, I mean, you can focus on different things when you draw. You can focus on capturing movement, which is the whole body. And a good exercise is to time yourself, like give yourself very short periods of time to see as much as you can in a short period of time and get that down. It doesn't have to look beautiful, it doesn't have to look perfect. It's just a sort of eye hand coordination exercise. And the other thing you can focus on is detail and contour. And that is where you can go as slow as you want to. Take your time and just, you know, again, it's all about learning to see for me.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, you're training your eyes to see as much as possible in as short amount of time as possible, and you're training your eye to focus on what's in front of you rather than what's in your head.
Yeah, and actually both of those tips are really helpful for observing behavior in general,
Yeah,
which
yeah.
which plays a role in all of the work that all the pet professionals do because it is a little bit about, you know, quickly snatching an image in your head of what's happening here and being able to see it, but also being able to focus in on some of that detail. So it's nice that it applies both for me as my self-serving question and to the larger group.
Yeah.
Um, so I always ask my guests to share some words that have meaning for them. And the words you shared were, how can I make this simpler and easier? Can you tell me a little bit about how that phrase came into your life and what it means to you?
Um, so I'm thinking of like the books that I worked on, like Doggy Language and Kitty
Mhm.
Language and Dogs of the World. Like that was something I kept when I was writing and illustrating those books, that was something I was really focused on. Like I wanted to make the information as simple and easy to understand as possible because I want as many people to be able to understand what I was writing about. Um, and it's actually not an easy thing to do.
It isn't.
It's
It
not easy
isn't.
because you could just, I mean, I could be using too many words. I could be using jargon. And it's very easy to use jargon when it's all around you, and you take it
Hmm.
for granted. And I remember, I think the very first draft I wrote of Dogs of the World, and I shared it with my husband, who's not a dog behavior person at all. He doesn't know the jargon, and he just immediately picked out all the jargon words that didn't even register to me as jargon.
Hmm.
So it's like instances like that.
Yeah, it is. It's always worth it to kind of, well, first off, have someone who doesn't know what you're talking about read something to
Yeah.
see when it slips in. But that idea of like, how can I make this simpler and easier is hard work on the part of the teacher. Like
Mm,
that is an effort to try to think about how can I simplify something? How can I make it more accessible? How can I make it more digestible and understandable? And, that someone can actually use it and be able to move forward. So you obviously did it very, very well because your books have been well received and are useful resources for people. So you did, in fact, make things simpler and easier. So it was good of you to choose that frame for working through them. I think that's such an important piece. I think that we say things like, well, it's simple but not easy. That
yeah.
phrase comes up a lot. And I think that there's a truism to that we underestimate how challenging it can be to simplify something. And to be consciously looking for ways to do that is really valuable, which I
Mm,
guess goes back to your observation skills, doesn't it? Like that you're really always looking and assessing and thinking about how things could be.
yeah. Or there's also that, I don't know, is it an internet meme? The one that says, "Teach it to me like I'm 5,"
Mm.
or,
Yeah. Yeah. I never liked the title of the For Dummies brand
Yeah.
because I thought it was a little insulting, but I loved the concept. Like,
Yes.
break it down for me, make it simple, make things, you know, teach it to me like I'm 5. It is more accessible to me,
Yeah.
because I don't see any judgment on someone being 5. I do
Yeah.
see some judgment on someone being a dummy, um,
Yes, I
but
agree.
but that teach it to me like I'm 5 is really, really helpful, and it's it's fascinating how many things I think I understand that I cannot teach to somebody as if they were 5, because I'll slip in the jargon or I'll
Mm,
fall back on a
mm.
frame of reference that I expect they'll know, but they don't, or I need to
Yeah.
explain too much. So, teach to me like I'm 5. That's good advice. Well suited to your art too with the clean lines and the simple images. So, if people wanted to learn more about you and your work, how could they do that?
There's my website, which is doggydrawings.net, DOGGIE DRAWINGS. And I've got a lot of work on there. There are free resources that you can download. I also sell things. So I have a shop on my website that you can buy prints and pins and various things from. There's also like a portfolio of different infographics I've done for different clients. So yeah, there's a whole range of stuff.
Whole lot of things to explore when they go visit there.
Yeah.
Well, I thank you so much for talking with me today, Lily. It's really been a treat.
Thank you.
That's our conversation for today. If something we talked about resonated, I invite you to sit with it. Notice what feels true and what you want to explore further. You don't have to have it all figured out to start moving toward what matters. Whatever showed up for you today, clarity, questions, even resistance, trust that it's pointing you towards something important. For more support, join my weekly notes at colleenpilar.com. And until next time, remember, you are enough, always, just as you are.